Good morning. Today we're going to discuss failure to disclose and selling a flood home. I read a listing that caused me to be very uncomfortable, and it says it is the responsibility of the buyer to confirm any FEMA, Pasco County, or Florida state rules for rebuilding. Basically, the seller is not disclosing that the home will violate the 50% rule. And it's priced accordingly. But reading all of the disclosures, and it shows that it flooded, they are not disclosing that the home will violate the 50% rule. It's my opinion that they are taking this line. It is the responsibility of the buyer to confirm any FEMA, Pasco County, or Florida state rules for rebuilding. Somebody coming into town and reading this is not going to know that they need to specifically ask about the 49% rule in Pasco County. In fact, they're not even going to have any idea that that's the right question, much less having a realization that they are buying something that will definitely have to be torn down. And it appears that the seller this line is their proof that they disclosed, and I don't buy that. So I did a lot of discussion and research and talk about, what is disclosure, what necessary disclosure should you have made. And there's a concept that says even if you don't know, you should have. And then I got into all this mess with constructive knowledge and more constructive knowledge, and the seller should have checked, they should have known. Ignorance is not a defense in contract law, in property law. If a buyer should have known about a defect in the title, they might not have bought it because the seller didn't disclose, and they should have. Very in-depth legalese that I am not qualified to explain. But this thing that you knew or should have known is a standard written into law. So I go in there and I say, all right, to summarize, and I realized there's got to be more to it. So I went on to Chat GPT. Actually, I did DeepSeek. And I said, how does this all affect in real estate? And let's talk about how the duty to disclose in real estate. The seller has a legal duty to disclose material defects that affect a property's value, safety, or desirability. And it goes on to give some examples. It goes on and talks about the actual knowledge about the defect and intentionally hid it versus they should have known about the defect and didn't disclose it. This should have known concept, I brought it up with sellers of settlement homes that say, well, I don't know that it's a settlement home. Well, if you pull it up on the property appraiser, it shows that it is. Well, I didn't pull it up, so I don't know. And they want to say they don't have to disclose, but that is not the case. And here it goes on to talk about how it relates to real estate. Here's the concept of willful blindness. And then the realtor has an obligation to also disclose the legal consequences, how to avoid liability. And in general, ignorance is rarely a defense. The law expects sellers and professionals to act diligently, and courts will impute knowledge that they should have had. Transparency and due diligence are critical to avoiding disputes. So we go back to this listing. It is the responsibility of the buyer to confirm FEMA, Pasco County, or Florida state rules for rebuilding. Well, this particular property was a single wide mobile home. I pulled it up. It's got a tax assessed value on the building of $12,000. If you've watched these videos, if you're in the flood zone knowledge business, you know and I know that that's going to be a teardown. But this seller and this realtor is not choosing to disclose that this is a teardown. Their belief is that it is the responsibility of the buyer to confirm FEMA, Pasco, and or Florida state rules for rebuilding is satisfactory to allow them to sell this property to some poor victim who's going to buy it and say, wait a minute, I can't rebuild it? And this one line here is the defense that this party and this realtor are using. And I got to tell you, if you want to sell a flood zone home that can't be rebuilt, then you need to go with a realtor that is disclosing it. If you read a lot of listings, the code is seems to be being sold for land value, but they are still not disclosing in those listings that it violates or likely will violate the 50% rule. If you're shopping or you're thinking of selling and you don't want to take the risk of messing up, feel free to reach out to a knowledgeable, well-established realtor and make sure that you do not fail to disclose. Have a great day.